So there he goes, Dean Moriarty, ragged in the moth-eaten overcoat he brought specially for the freezing temperatures of the East. Walking off alone, and last I saw him, he rounded the corner of 7th Avenue, eyes on the street ahead, and bent to it again.
In the early 1950s, the nation recognized in its midst a social movement called Beat Generation.
We're not entirely certain why this upheaval occurred in American history, but it was a time when sex and music and drugs all came together and had a powerful impact on society, on our attitudes about sex, about...
We were fighting against the inhibition type thing that was forced on this country after the Second World War. And the only way that it could have been done was by protesting it, and by protesting it in such a manner that it would cause some sort of wild and angry.
The so-called Beat Generation was a whole bunch of people with all kinds of nationalities who came to a conclusion that the society sucked.
They opened up the idea that what was happening to us right now, what we were seeing on the TV, what we were reading in Life magazine, what was happening in our school was history, was poetry. And that was a breakthrough.
This is a terrific cultural revolution that has started with the beat movement, and then I was helped along by the political activists of the 60s who had an actual program of objectives, many of which have been realized: the end of the Vietnam War, decriminalization of pot, at least the statement of minority rights.
You know, the United Nations Charter said wars begin in the minds of, quote, men, unquote. And we knew, several of us knew at Harvard, that we had to have some quick way of changing minds because we couldn't afford the slow processes of civilization that had been dragging on for centuries. So right from the beginning, we wanted to change American culture. We wanted to change the minds and spirits and hearts and brains of our fellow Americans, and we designed it to be. It was one of the largest deliberate
In Chicago, 1959, I gave a reading, and we read Howell and Kaddish. And a relatively square lady in the audience during the question period raised her hand and got up and said, "Mr. Ginsberg, why is there so much homosexual reference in your poetry?" And I was a bit surprised because I thought it was obvious, because I'm queer. So I said, "Because I'm queer." And she said, "Oh."
Howl for Carl Solomon. I saw the best minds of my generation destroyed by madness, starving, hysterical, naked, dragging themselves through the Negro streets at dawn looking for an angry fix, angel-headed hipsters burning for the ancient heavenly connection to the starry dynamo and the machinery of night.
The man who has been called the spokesman of the Beat Generation, although it is my understanding that he dislikes this title.
Here he is, Jack Kerouac. How would you define the word beat?
It's the Beat Generation. It's Bayat. It's the beat to keep. It's the beat of the heart. It's being beat and down in the world, and like old-time lowdown, and like in ancient civilizations, the slave boatmen rowing galleys to a beat, and servants spinning pottery to a beat.
The amazement of America for him is partly that he's still an outsider. But then aren't we all here? As much as he calls himself an American, there's something of the outside looking in always in his work. That's the immigrant soul, you know, and I think that's a lot in the beat movement.
Jack was the first jazz poet.
Everybody looks everywhere. It's a jazz joint, and Beat Generation mad trick. You see someone, hi, then you look away elsewhere for something, someone else. It's all insane. Then you look back, you look away, around. Everything is coming in from everywhere in the sound of the jazz. Hi, hey, bang, the little drummer takes a solo, reaching his young hands all over traps and kettles and cymbals and foot pedal, boom, and a fantastic crash.
Good, Alana. See, every time I think of the 1950s, you just think about music as such a natural thing. You know, if she's 14 months old and can do that, then art's not really that mysterious. That was one of the things that Jack, all of us really tried to think about, and one of the points of departure.
All the black musicians that were yelling at that time were doing the same thing we were. So they influenced us with their glib tongues, done melodiously rather than verbally, rather than with words, with their body English. It was a very, very nice marriage.
There's a lot of other stuff going on in the same kind of consciousness expansion area, that musically, artistically, and drama, and this was part of a movement that was happening in the 60s, and not the main part of the movement.
A great artist is a provocateur. He has to be a provocateur in order to change what he's rebelling against or yelling at. And that's what the Beat Generation was really about in the beginning, but it was all not really that conscious. We were just having a good fucking time.
There was all those books out like Doors to Perception, all this. There was tremendous curiosity about psychedelics, and there were some people who even had who were able to get peyote buttons in those days, before manufactured LSD was around, and so the psychedelic experience was known and in certain circles, I think, and there were a lot of people who were just really curious and interested in finding out what it was about and what it was like. You know, it was a matter of.
It was like the space shuttle.
Yeah, it was something to try. Yeah, that's exactly right. He's right. It was a technological improvement, you know, something new. Yeah, or a fast car, you know.
It went to Jupiter. I mean.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
It was the passage back that we had trouble with.
This is a glass of water, colorless, tasteless. It contains 100 gamma of LSD-25. Let us observe the effect some 3 hours later.
And the dimensions and all the prisms and the rays and everything coming down through you and moving.
What does this all mean to you?
I've never seen such infinite beauty in my life. I wish I could talk in Technicolor or let you see. Did you say you can see it?
No, I can't quite see it. Tell me about it.
I can't tell you about it. If you can't see it, then you'll just never know it. I feel sorry for you.
Do you feel that you may have hurt yourself at all from all the experiments or experiences that you've had?
No.
No.
Not yet.
All right, so far. I think it was the beginning of a real, true revolution that's still going on.
And you're still a part of it, right, big guy?
Sure.
Okay.
So, in America, when the sun goes down, and I sit on the old broken-down river pier watching the long, long skies over New Jersey, and sense all that raw land that rolls in one unbelievable huge bulge over to the west coast, and all that road going, and all the people dreaming in the immensity of it. In an hour, I know by now that children must be crying in the land where they let the children cry. And tonight the stars will be out, and don't you know that God is Pooh Bear? The evening star must be drooping and shedding her sparkler dims on the prairie, which is just before the coming of complete night that blesses the earth, darkens all the rivers, cups the peaks, and folds the final shore in. Nobody knows what's going to happen to anybody besides the forlorn rags of growing old. Think of Dean Moriarty, I even think of old Dean Moriarty, the father we never found. Think of Dean Moriarty, I think of Dean Moriarty.
That's quintessential.